Okay, life gonna come at you fast. But you know what? You gotta stay ready.
Strong enough, never gave up every time I gave my all. Refuse to fall. Strong enough.
Can't stop, won't stop, keep going, don't stop.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Estate Master Dealmaker. And you know what? We created a space here where we discuss complex real estate strategies and we make them simple for you to master. Today we have joining us Mr. Multifamily Movement himself, Mr. Jullien Gordon. How you feeling?
No, I'm feeling good. Happy to be here.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
excited, man. What you have and what you're doing in your platform and what you're building, really being able to take beginners from zero to hero in a matter of months, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are some of the strategies and principles that you use to win and where you are?
Yeah, so one of the biggest myths that people have is that they can't afford real estate. They can't afford a single family home, let alone a multifamily home. And the reality is that most people don't understand how multifamily homes are actually financed, right? They think that a single family home costs $300,000 and therefore a multifamily home or a fourplex is going to cost $1.2 million. And that's not true. And while financing for a single family home is similar to a multi, makes it easier to buy a multifamily home than it is to buy a single family home. And that is when you're buying a single family home, the lender will typically give you credit for about or multiply your W-2 income by 6 to get you your pre-approval amount. So if you make $40,000 a year, they'll multiply that by 6 and you'll get pre-approved for about $240,000. But there's other factors that apply like your credit, the consistency of your income, etc. But when you're buying a multifamily home, let's say a fourplex, right, and each unit rents for $1,000, the lender will add in 75% of the rents that you're going to get in the upcoming year once you close to your W-2 income today. So 4,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wait, so you can actually purchase a multifamily and some of the actual
future rental correct
income counts towards your.
Correct. At 75%, that's $3,000 per month times 12 months. That's $36,000, right? So the lender will add that $36,000 to your $40,000 in W-2 income. So now you're getting approved based on $76,000 in income, not 40. Times 6 is $456,000. So you're literally able to qualify for almost twice as much real estate because you bought a multifamily home instead of a single family home.
And this is without changing this isn't, I gotta go save more, I gotta go put more money down, which is what most people's strategy, especially for first-time homeowners.
Correctly.
Their strategy is like, let me go, get 20%, right? That's what we're
correct.
told, I need 20% down.
Yes, that is not true when it's occupied property. So typically with your first owner occupied property, there are programs like FHA, like NACA, like VA, like USDA that allow you to put low down payments. You don't need 20 to 25% down. So literally, you can step into a property for a round trip flight to New York.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
So so a matter of like $1,000, I could get into my first multifamily property.
Yeah, I have a student named Gloria. She closed on a triplex in Philadelphia at around, I think it was $480,000, and all she had to pay was title fees.
So a lot of people are holding off home ownership, and a huge part of your platform is about shifting the narrative of what home ownership looks like.
Yeah.
Because the person who may think that they will not be investing in real estate.
100%, yeah. So one of the big parts of the American dream, or what I call the American nightmare, is the idea that a single family home is part of that vision. But a single family home can actually be a trap for many people if they're not careful. So when you think about a single family home, at no point in your lifetime does it ever pay you unless you sell it, right?
Now that is key. It's not really an investment unless it's paying you.
No, correct. An asset has to, one, appreciate and create cash flow. And single-family homes typically, they appreciate, and they appreciate well, but they don't provide any cash flow, right? And even the appreciation that single-family buyers get, most of that is only going to cover all the interest that they've been paying to the bank anyways during that time, because your first mortgage payment is typically 70% interest. So if you have a $2,000 mortgage payment, your first mortgage payment, $1,400 went to the bank, and the other $600 went towards principal. So what kind of bank would you bank at where you deposit $2,000
and only 600 qualifies?
and on you get a receipt that says 600, right? So that's what happens with a single family home. Like, for instance, a $300,000 single family home with 3.5% down at 4.5% interest rate, that's going to be $208,000 of interest. So that single family home was not $300,000. It's a $508,000 home, but that's the trick. The bank only shows you the sticker price. They don't show you or account for all the interest that you're going to be paying. So not only did you buy yourself a home, you bought your lender a home as well. So you have to be very careful. And so we have to, in the American language, there's a lot of trickery in the American language. The first thing is that
Own a home.
Own a home, right? They call you a home owner, but you're not a home owner, you're a home buyer. Subtle difference, but really meaningful. When you use the FHA program, you only own 3.5% of that home. Bank owns the other 96.5% of the home. So you thought you weren't renting anymore. Look at me, I'm grown and sexy, I'm not renting anymore. You are renting. You're not paying rent to a landlord, you're paying rent to the bank to use their money that you did not have to purchase that home. That rent is called interest. So you're still renting. So in that particular example, the $208,000 divided by 360 months, which is a 30-year mortgage, is $578 per month that you're paying in rent to the bank, even though you quote unquote own a single family home.
But it doesn't feel like rent because like you said, we get distracted by the sticker price.
Yeah, correct. And then on top of that, you have PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. You have your homeowner's insurance. You have your property taxes. And the one that everybody leaves out when they're buying a single family home and they're saying, oh, well, it's less than I pay in rent, is maintenance. You have maintenance. When that roof, you need to replace that $6,000 roof, that's coming out of your retirement. And so even when you've paid off a single family home in full, you now have a 30-year-old home and you have maintenance, and that becomes your mortgage. And so at no point does a single family home actually pay you. So you have to be very careful with the American dream, and real estate agents will happily sell you whatever it is that you desire. Programming is really real. Your single family home with the white picket fence, that's in a lot of people's imagery. But the pathway to true freedom through real estate is through multifamily real estate. And going back to the initial question, when you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, also known as a 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family, it falls under the same residential guidelines as a single family home. The same lender, same documents, same paperwork, same 30-year fixed rate, and the same interest rate. Once you get to 5 units or more, like some of the deals that you do, that's when you're dealing with a commercial loan, and that's a different process. But many people don't process, plus you get the rental income added when you're getting pre-approved. And so this is a really powerful concept, because now if you do what I did in Brooklyn, New York, in May of 2013, I achieved rent and mortgage freedom. And what that means is that I have not had a housing expense since May of 2013.
You have not had like any that you've had or that other people pay for you?
People pay for it for me, right? So I went from paying expensive rent in Brooklyn to being paid expensive rent in Brooklyn with one move. So I bought a triplex, I rented out the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor, and I lived in the 1st unit for free, because the rents from the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor covered my principal, interest, taxes, insurance, CapEx, repairs, reserve, and vacancy rate, and left me with additional cash flow. So now I was being paid to live instead of paying to live. And you know, New York is one of the most expensive markets in the entire world.
Exactly.
And so I have not paid any money towards housing. And if you could literally just do that one thing, it would change the financial trajectory of your life. For instance, $1,000 a month invested at 6% annually for the next 30 years, it would leave you with $1,015,590. So if we could literally just do this one thing, which is to get rid of your housing expense, and for most Americans, their housing expense takes up about 35% of their income. So if you're bringing in $6,000 as a family, $2,000 is going out towards housing, but that's going to another family, right? And so if we could literally just do this one thing, it will change the financial trajectory of your life forever. And that's the power of multifamily real estate. When you think about the other asset classes out there, whether it's stocks, whether it's cryptocurrency, et cetera.
Jewelry or art or things
you can't
like
live in those. You can't live in those asset classes. This is an asset class that, one, you can live in, gets rid of your housing expense, which is your biggest expense, gives you cash flow, gives you tax benefits, right? And also appreciates and has principal pay down because the tenants are paying the mortgage for you. So these are the 5 benefits of multifamily real estate that most people are not aware of. So they think that I'm going to get a single family home and then I'll save up that 25% and then start investing in real estate, when the reality is that you should invest in real estate first, a triplex or a fourplex, and then use the cash flow from that property to buy your single family home.
Nice. to Sofia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Are you finding that people are truthful online more, or maybe not so much?
There's a lot of filters that women have. There's a lot of things that you really don't know that person until you actually meet them in person.
So in other words, you guys are being catfish.
Definitely.
So 2 questions. How hard is it to find a duplex, a triplex, or a quad?
Yeah.
And then, do you really want to live around all those people?
Yeah, great question. So the programming is so real in American society that there are actually single-family homes that cost more than multifamily homes
Exactly.
because the demand is higher for a single-family home. Most people don't know about this play, right? And so in some markets, multifamily homes are readily available, like New York, Philadelphia, New Orleans, with the shotgun homes, et cetera. So literally, people had a business model built into their housing. But in other environments like Houston or Atlanta, et cetera, where there's plenty of land and builders just keep going further and further out, multifamily homes aren't in as high quantities, but they still exist. And so you just have to be very specific about your search, and you have to get very familiar with your neighborhoods. You'll see them; they're around, and you have to make sure that your searches, and not only your online searches, but most importantly, your agents who you are working with or wholesalers that you're working with are aware of what your criteria is and what exactly are you looking for. So they exist. And the other thing is, your money doesn't have to work in the same city as you do, right? So I own in Brooklyn, Oakland, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Atlanta. My money does not have to work in the same city as I do. So you don't have to be restricted by where you live. Some people own Amazon stock and never been to Seattle. They own Nike stock and never been to Oregon, right?
True.
Your money is working in a city that you don't live in. And once you understand multifamily real estate at a higher level, then you're able to invest anywhere where you see opportunity. And so I encourage people to invest in these 4 places. They're not cities, right? First, try to invest where you live, okay? If there's no how to find the opportunities there, then go invest where you're from. So a lot of people are from smaller, non-sexy markets. They moved to this sexy market, which is now expensive. But if they just went back home, they could take their capital and their income from that market and actually go buy back the block where they're originally from.
Because you know that like the back of your hand. You know
like
the demand generators. You know all of the criteria that you would have, why people move, where they move.
Correct.
You know, these are things that people know in their backyard. And,
right.
And so it's like low-hanging fruit almost.
It is, very much so. And so you're able to certification a lot easier there. Then invest where you want to be a contribution, right? And then finally, if none of those work for you, then just invest where you can make money. So I invested in Brooklyn because I was living there. Then I invested in Oakland because I'm from there. Then I invested in New Orleans because I wanted to be a contribution there. And I've never made a real estate investment purely for economic gains. I'm an ethical investor, and I don't hate many things, but one thing I do hate is slumlords. And so I don't invest just for profit. There are real estate educators and investors who purely are about profit. Yeah, just go buy the building and kick the people out. No, for me, it is people over profit, not profit over people. And this is why landlords have a bad name because of
volume.
The volume. Yeah. And the type of investors who have taken advantage of people knowing that housing is their biggest expense and that they don't really have as many options because you have to pay for housing. Your other options are to live outside in tent and be homeless, right? So people will stay. And there was one of my students, I was able to break her mental real estate, right? Mental real estate first is the key. The tactical how-to is all out there, but what stops people is the mental real estate here. And she had literally been renting from a slumlord for 9 years. Now we know a lease only lasts for 1 year, right? So she could have got on apartments.com or Craigslist.com or .org and found another apartment. But when you get stuck in victim consciousness, right, you get stuck there and you think that that's your only option. But once I was able to show her a way, she started making headway into her goals of actually owning real estate.
Because that's actually what you do. You actually coach students with not only, you know, how to do the technical aspect, but more so that mindset shift that it takes to go from, you know, all we know is the American dream of I need to graduate college, get a job, C-suite executive potentially, and then, you know, get my house. So it's like, you're talking about changing paradigms and changing worlds.
Yeah.
So what has been the hardest shift, you would say, as far as the student you've had to convince the most in the students that you work with?
Yeah, it's just really the programming of the American dream, and I have to do everything in my power to help people see reality for what it is. Many people think that slavery is over because there's no chains and things of that nature, but slavery is just a death. If you don't feel free right now, then guess what?
You're not free.
You're not free, and not free means that, yeah.
I know for me, I realized I wasn't free when I used up all of my vacation time at corporate America and had to borrow from the next year's vacation time. And as I was doing that and filling out the paperwork in the future, I was like, I'm selling time for next year.
Exactly.
To somebody who I don't feel, you know, I feel like they don't own it, but then I'm having to ask them, is it okay to use my time to go somewhere I desire to go?
And that's what it takes for people sometimes being in those situations and having those moments, right? Because now you travel all over the globe, right? And so you went from thinking you were free, but then realizing you weren't, to now having the freedom to travel wherever you want, whenever you want, as frequently as you want. And so, you know, slavery has just adapted. In modern day slavery, it is mental and it is monetary. And so a lot of people are caught up in debt bondage, whether that's their credit cards, whether that's medical bills, and then the big one is student loans and then mortgages, right? These are all bad forms of debt. There is such thing as good debt, but these are all bad forms of debt that keep people in bondage. And so once you help people see that we're actually still living out slavery, in that the US dollar is 75% cotton. And what that means is that most people are still out here on the corporate plantation every single day picking cotton for their master, and they did not know it. Now, there are people who love what they do for a living, but in most cases, I think the Gallup survey says that around 80% of people hate the work that they do. And so to me, that very much sounds like slavery. And so we have to be very careful and we have to be aware of what we're actually engaged in. The reason they call it the American dream is because they had to rock you to sleep to get you to believe it. The American dream is really based on ownership. And the only reason America exists and why they call it the land of the free is because they got so much land for free. They stole it. And land is the most valuable resource on earth. The most valuable thing on earth is a piece of earth, right? And when you really think about it from a spiritual standpoint, what was God's gift to man before life?
Land.
It was land. It was land. So land is sacred. It is sacred. And the issue is that why Black home ownership is only at 42%, ownership is around 73%, is because our people, we never perceived the land as something to be owned. Subconsciously, we never saw it as something to be owned. It was here before I got here, so how can I own it?
Yeah.
I asked my daughter, I said, if you showed up to a playground and it was already there, do you own the playground? Can you own the playground? No. Right? It was already there. But for whatever reason, we had brothers and sisters who believed in this idea of private property. That's the language, and ownership of land. And as we, being hearted people that we are, we allowed people to come on, yeah, come share the land. And all of a sudden there's fences up and there's guns pointed at our face. And so we are now buying back that land slowly but surely. We actually own more land after emancipation than we do now. And so it's really crazy to think about what we've been through and how our detachment from land has actually led to our bondage here in this particular country. So when you think about Black Americans, every culture has a land that they can tie their culture and their identity to. If you're Italian, if you're Italy, you're Greek, Greece. But we as people of African descent, given that we lost some of that history due to the Middle Passage, we actually don't have a physical land that we can attach to. And the other reality that grips with is that not all of us came here on slave ships. There were Black people on this continent before Christopher Columbus ever hit. But if they tell you that narrative, then you feel that you have no right to this country because you're not from here. They're not from here either. You have as much claim to this Native Americans that were here, we're Black Native Americans,
Yeah.
right? And so if we are the firstborn on Earth, right, then we probably populated the entire Earth. And
Exactly.
so, and when you think about it historically, how did people who would come from Africa or the continent immediately know how to grow things that were here as slaves?
We knew how to tool the earth.
Every discipline starts with creating a habit. Find a plan that works for you. I know you can put a reminder in your phone, call so-and-so in 30 days. You can't use the excuse that, oh, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert. You know, stuff people like to say. Nah, if you're not outgoing, right, you better get going, because that's the only way networking works.
Severe weather can strike anytime, anywhere, but there's a simple way to stay safe. Hey, Jim Cantori here. I stay safe in dangerous weather by planning ahead. You can stay safe too with a few easy steps. Build an inexpensive kit with supplies for your family's needs. Write down important information like phone numbers and medications. Always talk with your family, and remember any pets in your planning. Be ready, be safe. Start your plan today at ready.gov/plan.
Would you say that the pandemic has been a trauma for citizens?
Through life, through things we see, through communities we live in, through experiences that we've been exposed to. So, you know, the pandemic kind of took all that stuff that was back there that we really haven't addressed and says, oh, well, hold up. I got another story to tell you.
Like that's one of the things I loved about exploring and traveling Africa.
Yeah.
Is like you see the instinctiveness and that's just, you know, natural of knowing how to toil the earth, knowing how to be out in nature, and a lot of things that I feel we're coming back to now.
Yeah.
Especially as education. It's almost like the extension cord was severed, like you said, as far as that middle passage.
Yeah.
And now we're coming back, you know, through our generation to reconnect those ends. And I feel like that's where the power of the movements that you have, that we're both doing to really impact us. Be like, hey, everything we've been learning is wrong. We have to shift our paradigm to get back on the right accord. And redefining things, like you mentioned the word like gentrification. Because I actually did a documentary, you know, on gentrification in Atlanta and studying the progress of how it transitioned, starting beyond even the Olympics with Techwood Homes, when they were doing those projects, to see how it would be to put everybody socioeconomically together. And just to see what came from that and what grew from that, being in the backyard, to be able to see the dichotomy of what they were doing in planning and development. They're thinking 10, 15, 20 years. And like you said, sometimes we can be short-sighted to think 5 years, you know, the next year ahead of me, and not realize that we're playing our role in a 10, 20, 30-year plan that is to keep us in rental status while we're fattening the cow of our landlord or other people around us that are able to benefit from our rents and our economic power versus pooling together those resources. But and how can students find you to join, you know, the movement, to understand the paradigm shift and the community that you develop?
So the easiest way is to go to rentfree.com. I do a webinar there periodically where I teach people the game for absolutely free. And the reason it's named Rent Free, no other way to put it. If you are renting, you are technically homeless. You don't have a home.
There's nothing you can leverage. If you needed something, you don't have that leverage piece.
You're not on the title. You're not on the deed. You may call it my apartment. You may call it my house, but the reality is it's not yours. Now, there's a spectrum of homelessness. I'm not calling you homeless like the person who's sleeping on the bus bench, but there's a spectrum, and you're on this end of the bus bench, probably dealt with childhood trauma, mental illness, no food, no money, no family, no job, etc. And here you are with all of this education, a good job, good head on your shoulders, people who love you, nice clothes, a decent car, etc. But at the end of the day, you've been working for 5, 10, 15 years, and you still don't have a home. This homeless person owns as many properties as you do. And when you really ask that question in that way, a light bulb goes off perpetually for, let's say you're paying $1,200 a month in rent for 10 years. That's $144,000 that's gone off to another family when that could have actually been in your family and stayed there to create wealth. We know that real estate is the most successful business model and most sustainable business model of all time. It's the #1 subscription business. It's not going anywhere as long as human beings are on the face of this earth. I can't guarantee you that Tesla will be here, Apple, they will still be, they'll be more valuable than they are today.
Oh, this was powerful. This was a powerful conversation, and really tying in understanding your buying power and understanding take charge of your destiny and not letting someone else determine what you get to be by reconnecting with really your roots
and who you
reconnecting with your birthright
and
reconnecting with what's naturally yours and understanding the strategies of how to navigate that.
100%.
So you said find you on rentfree.com.
Rentfree.com.
And then what if people just want to find you in general to hear more? You know, I know you have several platforms that you speak from as well. How can people find you there?
The best one is Instagram right now, and that's at Jullien Gordon, Gordon. That's Jullien Gordon. That's where you can find me. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer to help you acquire your first multifamily property.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us again today. It's been an awesome conversation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Estate Mastery with your girl. Got it. Let's get it. Let's go.
Strong enough, never gave up every time I gave my all. Refuse to fall. Strong enough.
Can't stop, won't stop, keep going, don't stop.
You gotta push through. You gotta keep believing in yourself because you know you got it. So let's get it. Let's go.